muli ko may klase kariyeriwanan na FIW Bharti Mahila Federation Delhi.
Today we are here at Jantar Mantar to protesting the demand of release of Teesta and Sri Kumar and other people who have been chanted. Especially these people who have been fighting against the communalism and the killings in Godhra, in Gujarat, and fighting for justice, fighting for truth from 20 years. And the way they have been targeted, the way they have been put behind bars, the way they have been harassed, it's unfortunate. The truth is, the riots happened. The truth is, Muslims were killed. The truth is, convictions happened against people who were involved in the violence, and Modi's ministers who were during his government, they were there. And it is also the truth, when the Godhra riots happened, Modi was the chief minister, and raising questions about the competence of his administration, raising questions about the competence of how they handle the riots is not a crime. Fighting for truth is not a crime. Today the government presently is trying to ensure that if you are fighting for the truth, you will be behind bars. If you are going to lie and if you are going to bow down to this regime, we will reward you. If you are going to do grave injustice, we will reward you. But if you stand with justice, you are bound to lose your civil liberties, your freedom, and also the more and important thing, the democratic spirit through which we as a country live, and the communal harmony through which we as people of India live. I would only say one thing: if today we stay today we stay silent against this injustice, don't think that this is not going to come towards us. What has reached Teesta's doors, the process of injustice is also going to reach the house of each and every one. The annihilation of rule of law, the annihilation of the process of finding for truth and fighting for truth, when that is challenged, when that is criminalized, anyone and everyone who are standing for themselves and for truth will be criminalized and will be put behind bars. It's a lesson for us that if you don't stand by each other, if you don't stand by the democratic principles, if you don't stand by what we consider is communal harmony and is love for each other rather than hatred, that this is going to come to us one day and there will be no one to speak for us then.
I think it's the most dangerous moment of independent India, and we have entered a phase where a final assault has been launched on democracy. Democracy works through institutions, and institutions don't work automatically. They need to be moved. And it's the job of mainly human rights workers, which motivate, which force state institutions, which given their nature are, if not anti-marginalized, anti-Dalit, anti-woman, anti-Adivasi or anti-Muslim or anti-Christian, they look at these communities with great suspicion. So there have to be intermediaries, and it's the human rights workers who have been acting for last several decades as intermediaries. Also, human rights activists have worked as a community, someone who assists the judiciary of India to do its job properly, because we know that more often than not, state agencies are not truthful in their account. So to record truth, to record it for not only for posterity but for contemporary times as well, this is what human rights activists have been doing. But now, when the Supreme Court says that if you persist with your demand for justice, then you have an ulterior motive. This is what the Supreme Court has unfortunately written. It will have a chilling effect on human rights work in India, and it will directly impact the very existence, leave alone well-being of the marginalized communities, Muslims being the most prominent among them. So I think the Supreme Court needs to rethink and strike off that section in its judgment which calls for prosecution of those who had insisted on getting the investigation redone to find out whether there was a conspiracy behind the violence which took place in 2002 in Gujarat. By doing that, Supreme Court would be, I think, salvaging its own prestige and its own standing. It needs to hear itself, Supreme Court itself, what Supreme Court had opined in 2004 later, when with the help of the human rights activists, it could get justice for many in Gujarat. So that tradition needs to be continued, not destroyed.
ये सही है कि आप इस सत्ता का आज इस्तेमाल करके, सत्ता का दुरुपयोग करके आप सभी को आपकी बड़पशाही तानाशाही का इस्तेमाल करके लोगों को कुचलने का कार्रवाई आप कर रहे हो.
Supreme Court judgment on this shows very clearly that people who raise their voice against injustice have been put on a warning. And this is something that the courts should not be doing. You know, what the Supreme Court has done to instruct that these people who had raised the wanton killings of so many innocents in Gujarat, if they had not raised these issues, many of those who were responsible, who were finally proceeded against, none of this would have happened. You know, and now people from the civil society who have stood with victims have now been given a warning. You know, so this is the worst level to which judicial, the delivery of justice could have sunk. You know, this is what has happened is just absolutely unbelievable. And at the same time, we have people traveling all the way to Germany and talking about the dark days of the emergency. What is going on right now, this undeclared emergency, is darker.
Teesta has long been the symbol of the crusade against a certain kind of communal politics of the BJP and the RSS. So the effort now is to reverse the entire narrative of the last 2 decades. So it is not just Teesta and Sri Kumar and Sanjeev Bhatt who have been targeted, but I think this is the beginning of a much bigger campaign of individually targeting people who they feel actually went around trying to use the systems to try to put the guilty behind the bars over the last 20 years.
What do you see as the way forward, sir, for us ordinary people? What do we do in this situation?
I think everybody has to live up to their conscience. Let their conscience decide which side they want to be, what they want to do. It is the people who have turned up here today to just be here. And I am not going to be shouting slogans here, but I have come here just for the sake of my conscience. We are all prisoners of our conscience. Somehow or the other, we have to ensure that at the night when we go to sleep, we at least have a peaceful night. I do not want to go to sleep on any single day when I feel I have betrayed the values with which I grew up.